We are live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cubist. My name is Bill Corey. I am the Cubist, and I am excited because not only do I have the always fabulous Patrick Hillier in the second chair today. Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. But I also have Renegade Games own Sara and Scott. Sara Erickson and Scott Gaeta. Hi, you two. How's it going?
Oh,
Wonderful.
We lost somebody.
Oh, hey, check that out. Oh, I'm such a rookie. I had it echoing in the background. It scared the hell out of me. I heard myself yelling at myself, and I didn't know what's going on. There we go. All right. So, yeah, today's episode is going to be all about getting inside the head of game publishers. And I thought, what better opportunity than to get a publisher kind of under the spotlight and let you guys talk about the decision-making process that goes into putting a game out onto store shelves. I think it's a fascinating thing that I don't think a lot of publishers, I feel like sometimes publishers feel like there's inside baseball and sometimes there isn't. And I think it's going to be fun to kind of hear some real talk from folks that are willing to open up about the subject. So I'm really excited about this. This is going to be a lot of fun. But first, as always, we got to talk about the stuff that we've been playing lately so people can judge whether we're real gamers or not. Haha. So Sara, what have you been playing lately, Sara?
Well, I have been playing a lot of prototypes and Renegade games, but this weekend I did get one of my favorite games back on the table. I actually had some extra time, so I got a group together and played Tzolk'in, and we had a blast. I did very poorly as I sort of ignored that whole Chichen Itza area where the skulls are. I did not pay attention to that as much as I needed to, but it was still a great game. We had a blast.
Tzolk'in is one of my all-time favorites. I absolutely adore that game, and that is one of those evergreens where I don't feel like I'm likely to ever get sick of it. I always love that thinkiness. Sara, if you had to give like a 1-minute elevator pitch on what Tzolk'in is, in case there's folks out there that haven't played it, like my friend Kimberly Bullock, how would you pitch the game?
So Tzolk'in is a worker placement game at its heart, but the very intriguing thing about it is that it's got this crazy big wheel and gears connected to it. So when you place your worker on a spot, you're not going to get to do that action because after you place it at the end of that round, the whole wheel is going to turn one notch and your worker is now going to be in front of a different action space. So you have to plan very carefully. This round you're going to put guys on, next round you're going to take guys off, and where those guys are going to be based on what strategy you have for the game. And that can be really a tricky thing to do, but it's a lot of fun, and trying to plan all of that out and get the right strategy is what I really enjoy about it. It's a little bit of a puzzly game, but it's also an engine building game. I like both those things a lot, and it's really pretty.
Oh, isn't it? Do you have a painted set of gears? I know that's a thing that a lot of people
don't. No, but while we were playing, we were looking at other people's painted sets online and being very jealous about them and talking about how we did not have enough time to paint our own set. But my husband paints a lot, so I may have to make him do that for me.
I'm seriously considering painting mine now, if for no other reason than I have all the Stonemaier treasure chest fancy bits that I use in the game anyway. And so like I feel like adding those to then this unpainted sort of tan plastic wheel just feels a little hinky. I want it all to be gorgeous at this point. It's such a cool game. Oh,
it's a really good idea, upgrading the bits. I have those too. I need to do that with mine.
Yeah, those Stonemaier bits are just, you just can't go wrong. I have them in a whole separate tackle box. Like I don't add them to just one game. I have, here's my fancy bits box. What are we playing? Okay, what works? And I just throw them in and take them out as the game goes on. So I love it.
Oh, that's super smart. All mine are hidden inside right now, so I need to pull those out and use them for other games.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Sara, the Cubist has its own patented rating scale for games, which is either buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it. What would you say for Tzolk'in, the Mind Calendar?
So I would play Tzolk'in all the time, but it is a really heavy game. There's a lot going on in it, and I feel like if you play it and you don't love worker placement games, you could get a little frustrated with it. So I would say play it.
Okay, very good.
Because you're either going to love it or hate it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. My knee jerk is to say buy it for sure. For me personally, I mean, because I just think it's It's in my top 3 games of all time. So to me, it always astounds me when people aren't as in love with it as I am, because I just don't understand how you can't be. But you're absolutely right. I have run into a fair number of people that are so daunted by that delayed action mechanic and trying to figure out how far the wheel will have turned by the time they want to do their thing, that, yeah, it's probably a play it. That makes perfect sense. So cool. That's a hard bar to get over, Scott. That's one of the best games ever. How about you? What have you played lately?
The game I played that was not one of our own games this past weekend the most was Explorers of the North Sea. So
I'm not familiar with that one at all.
So it's a Viking themed game. It's the 3rd in a series. So the first 2, let me see if I actually wrote them down because I want to make sure I get the names right. Because when they're not my games, I feel more obligated to represent them.
Sure.
I don't want to mess up something. So there were Shipwrights of the North Sea, Raiders of the North Sea, and then this is Explorers of the North Sea. So in Explorers of the North Sea, it's 1 to 4 players, and you're Vikings, and you're competing against all the other Vikings, and you have your little ship and your little meeple Vikings. And it's a tile laying game where you're laying sections of the board, and it's the waterways and the islands. And when you lay a tile, one of 3 things can happen. Animals, so there's little animal meeples like chickens and goats and horses and cows. And then there's sometimes when you lay a tile, there's an icon that says that there's a enemy Viking ship out there, and you put a little enemy Viking ship tile on there, or a little chit. And the other thing is sometimes there's settlements, and you put that settlement down and you put a little settlement marker on there, and it tells you how strong the settlements are. So it's in essence, it's a set collection and pick up and deliver game. So you're taking you're managing your resources as far as your Vikings, and you're going around the board, and you're either fighting other ships, collecting all the different animals, which there's a set collection element, so you get bonuses if you have more cows or more pigs. Or you're taking over settlements and conquering the settlements. And it's pretty cool. The map, the tile laying piece of it is really, I thought was pretty cool in the sense that the board's always changing. And you can also paint yourself into a corner where you really kind of done yourself in, because you can take over, you can, I forget what they call it in the game, like strongholds. You can actually take over an island and put a stronghold there. It gets you bonus points at the end of the game. But you can cut yourself off from the board and actually not be able to navigate to certain parts of the board based on the way the tiles fit together. So it's kind of neat.
Oh, wow. That sounds super cool. The way that you're describing the tile laying aspect reminds me a little bit of Akrotiri, in that you're building the map as you go, and sometimes you're trying to build these routes to get to specific things or whatever, and then form the map around your desires. But it's very easy to accidentally place a tile and end up kind of hosing everything, so that way suddenly you can't do half the things you thought you were going to be able to do. I love games like that, and this sounds fantastic. When did this game come out? This is the first of ever.
It was a Kickstarter. I just got this. I don't have the first 2, and I saw the 3rd one on Kickstarter, and it just came in. I think I got it about a month or so ago.
Okay, so it's brand new.
Yeah, it's brand new. And then they also have something called Rune Saga, which is, I just opened it up today just to kind of check it out. You can play all 3 of the games as a campaign. And there's a Saga add-on that actually has kind of like a meta campaign that runs through all 3 of the games, where you're actually collecting rune stones and competing against the other Vikings, and it's a cumulative thing. So I haven't even played that yet, but now I got to go find it.
Now I want to go find all 3. I love any game that has a sort of a campaign. I think that's what attracted me to like the legacy style games in the first place, right? Is that whole idea of what you do now can matter later, and you sort of the story arc of gameplay. I love that kind of stuff. This sounds fascinating. All right, so as a standalone game, because you haven't played the campaign, and I don't think anybody else here has. Has any of you secretly played this that we don't know about? No? I'm guessing no. All right, never mind. So as a standalone game, Scott, what do you think? Buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it?
Well, I would definitely say if you have the other 2 games, buy it. It's a no-brainer. Buy it and buy the expansion that gives you the campaign setting. Sure. If you're not sure, maybe if Vikings aren't for you, maybe you want to play it first.
Okay. Very cool. I'm kind of geeked about this. Might be one of those games that at BGG Con in a few weeks that I make a point of sitting down to, because I love everything that you talked about in the description of this, and this sounds like one of those kind of games that I'm not likely to see in my game group just because it was a Kickstarter only and it's so new and whatever.
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool.
Single player mode too, which I played, that was pretty fun.
Oh, solo. I'm growing. Like in the last year, I have definitely become much more focused on solo play. So I love the fact that that's an option too. That's always a good sign.
Me too.
Very cool. Mr. Hillier, sir.
All right, I'm going to
Phil to your friends. What you play?
Phil to my friends. Yes, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back a couple of years. So this weekend there was a small convention in Cincinnati, and I hooked up with Bill Coons, who does the geek list for What Did You Play This Week. And my son's now a student at University of Cincinnati, so we arranged to play a game that we all like, which was the original Power Grid from 2004. So I dusted off my copy, and I had just picked up some fancy little plastic or whatever ceramic bits at Gen Con from game trays, realistic garbage cans and realistic little nuclear power plant looking things, and wanted to get those played. And I got a real cheap Brazil map, and Bill has a three-dimensional auction map that's sort of on an angle.
Oh,
so
the one
just had this.
The laser cut plastic one. What is the name of that company?
It looks like it. He made his own, but it functioned in the same way.
Got it.
We just had, we were out in the middle of the room, and everyone walking by going, "Oh, wow, what do you guys got going here? Look at all these pieces." And so it looked pretty cool, and we had a good time. So it was fun to hang out with my son, who's not around anymore, and Bill, and play one of our favorite games. So I'm a big
Power
fan.
Grids. As am I. I have been known to rant about Power Grid more than once, so I will try to rein it in there. But for you, buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it.
Oh, buy it.
Yeah,
no questions asked. I love that game.
And I love that you brought this up, and I did not know this, because now I have to retract a statement that I made to Sara earlier, in that is the one game that I do have fancy bits from Stonemaier that are living inside, because I also got the energy box, the Power Grid specific pieces, which was one of the boxes from the second Kickstarter campaign. So they are in my copy of Power Grid Deluxe, that they just live in there, because there's no other place I'm going to use little uranium canisters. I don't know where I would use that. So I feel like that can just live there. Oh, it's such a good game. Power Grid Deluxe is still better, but it's excellent.
But I've had this one forever, so I'm not going to.
Sure. Yeah, I don't blame you.
I have upgraded. I have 2 copies of a certain Renegade game.
Oh,
or a game that Renegade has. I'll say it that way. How's that?
That sounds like that tease much, Patrick? Where are you going with this?
I know. I'm just saying. I have Gravwell twice. How's that?
Oh, there you go. All right.
It was either that or Snowtails.
I could get the original Snow. I do have the original Snowtails, so I haven't gotten the new one of that yet.
The original, the 2008 S.
No. I have which version?
The Asmodee one.
Asmodee.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that old one at BGG. That one looks really cool. Yeah, I didn't stage this at all. No, those
carefully balanced his copy of Snowtails right over his head, so it looks like a Renegade halo.
Yes,
right here. It's just like, look how much I love you. There you go. I am embarrassed. I've never played Snowtails. I want to. I've wanted to play that game since it first came out. I remember somebody playing it at a Gaming Hoopla, the local convention here that I helped found, and I was watching it. And I was like, that looks amazing. I need to play it. And it just somehow has never happened. I don't know if maybe I don't know anybody that owns it or what, but I need to try it.
I saw the real old one at BGG in the library.
Ooh. Yeah. See, my BGG is starting to fill up entirely by accident, just by talking to people, right? Like every time I have a conversation with somebody, I'm like, well, I guess I'll have to play that BGG. And I think I've already volunteered for about 123 games at this point. This is not going to go well. It'll be fun to watch probably, but it's not going to happen. So,
yeah.
Speaking of older games, I got a chance to play Ginkopolis.
Yay!
This past week. I had played it once about, I want to say 3 years ago, when maybe 4 years ago, because it came out in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty much right after it had first come out that I played it once. And then the guy that brought it to game night stopped coming to game night. And so that was the one copy of Ginkopolis went far, far away. And now I discovered that a different guy that now comes to my personal game night had it, and he brought it along. And I was like, oh, excellent. I remember liking this game, but I remember nothing else besides that. Please let's learn. And so it ended up, the game is, for all intents and purposes, the only way that I know how to describe it is that it's sort of resource and hand management and sort of area majority. It's kind of all of those things. So for those of you that haven't played it, the idea is that you're going to have 4 cards in your hand, and you're going to play one of those each round. And that card is either just going to give you a resource, a tile, or a point, or you're going to play it with a tile to put that tile into play somewhere, either on the outskirts of this little city or to improve on an existing building in the city. And whatever card you play, if you use it to improve a space, the space you improve, that card joins your tableau and becomes a permanent power or possibly endgame scoring opportunity you have. So you are not only playing the cards as actions, but you're also thinking about, okay, I want this card to end up in my tableau. Can I make use of the other things that I have in order to get this card permanently mine, as opposed to just using it one time and having it go to the discard pile? It's really weird. But it's really hard to describe the flow of play of this game because it's ostensibly pretty simple. You always have 4 cards. You always pick one. You pass the other 3. But why you want to do anything in this game is so opaque. For about the first half of the game, you have no idea why you're doing anything. You're just like, well, this looks fun. Whoop. And then you do a thing. And you just kind of keep doing that. And eventually, everybody kind of seems to have this light bulb moment at about the same time. And when that light bulb moment happens, I think if I owned this game, I would immediately stop and say, okay, that thing you just understood, now we're going to start over. And now you'll understand why you're doing things the first third of the game. And I think that those kinds of games are such hard sells to teach to game groups because it really requires a blind buy-in. You have to be willing to play the game with no concept of why you're doing it. I think Tzolk'in is actually another game that can be kind of like that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Where it's that first play is so opaque that it's hard to buy in. Like, it's really tough to get people to commit far enough that they'll understand what the hell they're doing for the rest of the game. And I think it can leave a sour taste in people's mouths if they can't do that buy-in. And so for that reason, I would give this on the Cubist scale a play it. For me, it is a buy it. Like, this is one of those games where I'm willing to pay a potentially exorbitant amount of money to have it in my collection, because I feel like this is one of those games where I'm going to be able to dig real deep into the gameplay and optimization and getting better at it. And I love that in games. But I think that for the average viewer of the show, it's a play it for sure, because I think you have to be able to see whether you're going to be able to enjoy that sort of opaque gameplay, or at least that opaque learning curve. I think if you can't, and I think it's not going to be for everybody for sure, but it's solid. So
I think one of the other challenges with that is the end game scoring is a little unusual. You know, the majority thing, and that's hard for people to kind of wrap their heads around until it happens.
Yep. And that's another one of those light bulb moments, is because, so what he's talking about here is you create districts out of the 3 different colors of tiles, and the person that has built the most in any given district, which is basically just a contiguous path of tiles, will get points for that. But what people don't realize is that those districts can go away in the blink of an eye by one person placing one tile in the middle and cutting the district in half. And that's one of those light bulb moments. That's one of those points where people go, holy crap, what? Wait, what did you just do? That's a thing? And that will end someone's game. That's part of that whole, okay, now we need to stop and restart so you don't have all your eggs in that one basket. So I totally agree. But it's a great game though.
I picked it up at Gen Con last year, not this a couple months ago, used from someone, and I paid it 13 times in the last year. And that's a lot for me to play one game 13 times. I mean, I fell in love with it.
I think that's a lot for anybody nowadays. There's a reason they taught that nickel and dime lists are a big deal on BGG, because getting a game to the table 10 times that isn't code names can be kind of, you know, or anything like that, right? Like something that isn't a 10-minute super accessible, whatever, can be a real challenge. So that, that's definitely speaks highly to it.
Yep. All right.
Very cool. Sarah, do you before the show started, Sarah said that she had a ton of games to talk about. One more. What do you got, Sarah?
Well, I have been playing Covert a lot, and I just really, really enjoy that game. It's a dice placement game. It reminds me a lot of Bora Bora and Alien Frontiers and these other dice placement games I've played before that I really like. And it is a little unusual for me to play one of the games that's from Renegade that many times in a row, because usually I play it a lot before it comes out, and then I'm kind of on to the next thing by the time it releases. But I keep bringing it to my board game group, and literally every week for the last month and a half, somebody has asked me to teach them how to play it, which is really, really cool. And I love the game, so I always say yes. And so I've taught lots of different people, and I've played it a lot, and it's just been a really good experience. So for those of you who haven't played it yet, it's this interesting dice placement game that's sort of a worker placement style, where you have this circle and it's 1 through 6, and that's an action space you can choose. But if I choose action space number 1 on that dial, then anyone else who wants to do the same action can only place numerically adjacent to my die. So only 2 and if I placed 1, 2 and 6 are now available. So you can sort of block people a little bit by looking at what everybody else has rolled. But you're using those different action spaces to complete missions that you have that get you points. So the flow of the game, once you've gone through a round or two, is pretty smooth, and you kind of get what you're trying to do, and you're taking these actions and collecting resources and completing missions, but trying to puzzle out the best way to do that and what order to move things around in and where to put your dice is a great puzzle.
Sounds awesome.
Very cool. It does. That sounds right up my alley. I haven't had a chance to play Covert yet, but all right, 124 things to do at BGG. I'm telling you, this is how this is going to go. Excellent. All right, so I feel like asking you on the buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it scale when it's a game that you have published. I feel like I can predict your answer here somehow.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I will tell you, so instead of answering that question for myself, because obviously I would buy it, but the first 2 people at my store that I taught this to immediately pre-ordered it down at the counter. I own a local store, and so I was teaching these guys how to play, and they immediately said, where do we sign up? This is awesome. So for those people, my small sample size, it was a buy it.
And it probably is. I mean, it sounds like it sounds like it's got that good combination of pretty accessible, but yet that puzzly aspect that I think it just based on what you're describing to me, it sounds like that sort of game. So absolutely. Yeah. And when people get up from a demo or a teaching game and they immediately go spend money on it, that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
I was pretty surprised because I wasn't encouraging them. Like, they all know I work for a publisher. They know I own the store. So I'm like, hey, let's play a game. And I'm very casual about it. I wasn't encouraging them to do that at all. And they both just stood up and did that. And I've never seen that happen before. So that was
so you didn't walk up with the box and go, look, Renegade Games has this fantastic title that I believe you should play. That wasn't your pitch?
That actually did not happen, no.
So we got somebody we have somebody in the chat room, Board Game Social, who is excited about his copy of Covert waiting to be played. So
there you go.
Yep.
Excellent. The one thing that we're gonna get to a couple questions. Yeah, I'll save it for questions because I think we have a couple of viewers that have questions already. So we'll save it for that. First off, I want to let Scott talk about one more game. Oh, Scott, you have one more game. Do you have one more game, Scott? Scott, hello. No. Did I freeze? Did my hamsters die?
No.
No, you're still here. We lost Scott's sound.
Oh, okay, good. I thought it was my fault again. Scott, are you muted? Scott.
Oh, no.
I believe in you. Oh, no.
You muted
Scott.
No. I just did that now to see if that would trigger anything.
Oh.
How do I unmute him? No.
Nope.
Oh, he's unmuted. Scott? Oh, poor Scott. He's not muted anymore. It's no longer my fault. All right. Well, I tell you what, and he's moving. So, Scott, can you hear us? Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us.
Yes,
all right.
You can hear us. All right.
Yeah, we just can't hear you, sir. And that was Patrick coughing, so that was less exciting. All right. Well, I tell you what.
Sound.
Is that what that was? Sure. We'll go with that. All right. So I tell you what, we will move on a little bit. And Scott, we'll see if we can figure out a way to, maybe you should leave and rejoin the Hangout. Maybe that'll help. Or do a sound test if you go up to the top of the thing and hit the little gear. All right. Well, hopefully Scott can make it back. Sarah, you may have to shoulder the burden all by your lonesome for a minute. So we had a question from the chat. Somebody asked, I don't know, Patrick, who asked this one?
Board Game Social.
This is Board Game Social. Okay. His question was, most publishers seem to focus on certain styles of games to carve out their niche. Do you guys feel like you have a niche, or are you trying to be more of an omni-publisher?
So Scott and I do actually talk about this pretty often. When he started Renegade, he had a lot of really solid, what would probably be considered family games. And those are games that you could play with your regular gaming group, you could play with your actual family, something that just anybody could walk into and play, but that were still interesting enough that gamer groups wouldn't be shying away from them. So they're still really exciting, deep strategy games, but were easy to learn. And I think Lanterns is just perfect for that. Lotus is another great one that really fits into that category. But that is definitely not the only thing we want to publish. If those were the only types of games we were looking for, we would be constrained a little bit. And I play Zolkin, I play lots of other really heavier games, so I'm really excited to publish possibly some Euro games, possibly, whatever comes to the table and is really new and different and seems like other people would like to. And that's really what we're looking for, is just really fantastic games that we think other people need to see. So it doesn't need to be just stuff like what we have in our catalog right now.
Gotcha. Okay, so no specific niche, more like just the quality of the game trumps the gameplay. Like, as long as it's a good game, it's on your radar.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe Scott can expound on that a little bit if his sound is back.
Maybe. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Hey!
Yay!
Exciting.
So the question was, I assume, whether or not we want to be focus on a particular niche.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Sarah covered it. I mean, we're just going to make games that we want to make. We did start off making a lot of casual games, and that was because, we identified that the market's really growing and that there's definitely a need for games that non-gamers could use. For lack of a better term, sure. I kind of hate like a lot of the labels like gateway games, but yeah, it serves a purpose. But moving forward, I think you'll see a lot of different stuff from us. It won't be just that narrow slice.
See, and that ties in perfectly to what we already have scheduled as our main topic, was the idea of getting inside the publisher's head. How does that decision-making process happen? So what is the process that determines what games are going to be published by Renegade or I guess by publishers in general, although obviously you're going to speak to your own experience. Like how does the process sort of go here?
I think it varies from game to game. There's some games that I would say I'm kind of a believer in love at first sight.
Okay.
There have definitely been games where I sit down, I've played it once or twice with the designer and just said, yeah, we're going to make it. And then there's been others where it goes through a more methodical process where we take a prototype and we play quite a bit. We'll send it out to some different groups. Sarah has her group up in Bozeman. I'll play it here. We have some other groups around the country, and we'll get some feedback. So there's no one set way that will work, but we'll kind of put it through its paces.
Sure. Okay, let's kind of zone in on a specific example here. Like, is there a project that's currently in the pipe at Renegade that you could kind of walk us through the process of how this game came to be where it is at this point?
Sure. So I could go back just a little over a year, and we could look at Lotus.
Okay.
So that game, I originally saw a sell sheet for it in July and liked what I saw. You know, it was like the typical one-page pitch. Contacted the designers and asked them to meet me at Gen Con because I knew they were going to be there. And we met. And that was kind of one of those things where I played it. We talked about it for a little bit, and I could see the potential and see where it could go and what it could be. And I said, yeah, I'll make the game. And they spent the rest of the weekend kind of pitching it and going around Gen Con, and they had some other people that were interested in it. And then by the end of the weekend, they made their decision and went with us. So that was really cool. But then the real work started. You know, then we kind of dug into it. The theme stayed pretty consistent. You know, it was always going to be about flowers, though we could have done something different with it if we chose. But I really did like the flower theme, but I didn't like the kind of the vibe that it was giving me when I thought of a flower game and gardening. I kept having an image of a little old lady in a sun hat, you know, digging around in the dirt. And that wasn't, you know, that wasn't going to market to the audience that we wanted to capture. I mean, we're not opposed to little old ladies in sun hats. I don't want to start getting but
you're old ladyist, Scott. I just heard it. You said it in front of the world. Terrible.
No. So we wanted to have a little bit broader of a theme and a look and a feel to the game, but it went through quite a bit of playtesting. Sara and I played lots and lots of games together. We actually were at Unpub in Baltimore. We played it with people there. That's probably the game she and I played the most that weekend. We played it like crazy at our hotel at night in between, you know, playing other people's games at Unpub during the day and looking for games there. And the game continued to evolve. Some of it was gameplay, some of it was theme and aesthetics. I mean, that's something that we really look at too. So probably the best example in that game is that the meeples, if you've played the game, right? So I might be butterflies and you might be the dragonflies and somebody else has ladybugs and somebody else has the inchworms. That game could have existed with one meeple for everybody. We could have all been butterflies, and that's the way the game was originally intended. The theme of the game, even though it added more cost to us on the back end, to give everybody a unique insect, because then it kind of upped the theme to a different type of level where, you know, the dragonflies are my allies and the ladybugs are yours and that sort of thing, where we could have just gone generic and everybody could have just had butterflies and it would have worked just fine. But so things like that evolve, you know, it's kind of the two axes. It's definitely the game design is most important, but then that theme and the look and appeal of the game and how, you know, the art and the graphic design and all that is a major part of it too.
Well, and I think that's really obvious. As an example, I backed Apotheca, the Secret Society, and I was stunned when I got that box at how gorgeous that game was, just laying it out on the table, because that game, for those of you that may not have played it, is essentially, the board is essentially just a grid. Like I don't want to sell the game short, but it's almost like a glorified tic-tac-toe board, right? Like, I mean, it's a grid that you put tiles on. You could do that with 16 boxes, and you know what I mean? But the embossed nature of the board and the vibrant colors and just the way that the whole thing looks, it takes what is essentially an abstract game, because it's really all about, you know, player powers and just putting a tile down and figuring out what's where, and turns it into this visually stunning kind of thematic feeling game that would not necessarily have been there had it not gotten that kind of treatment. So I absolutely agree. I think that, you know, it's like eyes do half the eating, right? You know, like when you get a plate of food, if it looks horrible, you're not going to want to eat it. It's the same. It can be the same thing with games. There are exceptions to every rule, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And Apotheca, I mean, that I got to give credit to Andrew, the designer. So he actually oversaw and he put together all the art and graphic design, and that was his project from top to bottom. And that's part of the reason that we were attracted to that game as well. I mean, we really did like
Sure.
the gameplay. I played it before there was any art. There was some preliminary art. We played the prototype and really enjoyed it. And then when we saw the direction that he wanted to go with the art, we were on board. So
Yeah, it'd be hard to say no to somebody that basically wants to do half the legwork on a publishing project, right? Like, sure, I'd be happy to do all of the art and all of the graphic design and all of the gameplay stuff.
I mean, if you're really good at it, it's easy to say.
Yeah, that's fair. I could grab a pencil and draw you some stick figures and slap it on a piece of paper and go, look what I made, guys, and nobody's going to want to. Yeah. So
And
yeah,
they'd be
assuming that they're halfway decent.
I can't draw either, so.
I don't know about that. I'm sure you do fantastic stick figures, Scott. I believe in you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to back up our conversation a little bit here. You talked about you saw the game, and then the decision was made at Gen Con, right? I'm sorry. There was a lot of thoughts going through my head there. Decision was made at Gen Con through a sell sheet. So basically, you got a sell sheet on the game. You took a look at it. You fell in love with it, and you said, "Okay, this is a thing that I want to do." And then,
no, we actually played it at Gen Con.
Okay, that's what I meant when I said took a look at it. I'm sorry. I used too many pronouns in there. You looked at the sell sheet, then you looked at the game, played the game, and decided this was awesome. All right, excellent. How finished was that game, like visually? When you got a chance to play it and you made that decision, was it close visually or not? Because I think, and I'm speaking for myself, and I suspect at least other designers, that maybe there's this pressure that you have to have basically a perfect looking game before you can pitch it. And I feel like that pressure is always kind of there in the back of us amateurs' heads.
Right. They definitely had a pretty nice looking prototype. It wasn't the art that we wound up using, but it was the flowers looked like flowers, and I think Jordan, he had chits, with the colors of the butterflies on there and stuff like that. So it was pretty above average, for sure. It was nice. But I would say that's not a requirement at all. I mean, we also play plenty of prototypes where they're handwritten pieces on paper. So I'll throw Kane Klenko under the bus a little bit. So Kane...
Can I show one of his cards that's not being used? Okay. So this is actually pretty nice. I won't complain about this.
That's one of his better ones. What are you
This
talking
is
about?
one of the better pieces that Kane makes, but it doesn't matter as long as I can play the game. Who cares?
No, I played stuff with Kane where it's, I mean, I wouldn't say it's written in crayon, but it's definitely handwritten. But it's totally fine because he's constantly changing, iterating on his designs.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's good.
I would just like to point out that Kane Klenko is within driving distance of my house, so can we please not piss him off too bad, because I don't want him to drive down and smack me around. Just throwing that out there. I know this guy might know where I live. No, that's actually it's his birthday.
It is.
Happy birthday,
Wow.
Kane!
Happy birthday, Kane.
Hopefully he watches this. No, I think that's actually kind of a relief, I think, for those of us that maybe aspire to someday publish a game, is that I have all the art skills of a tuna fish sandwich, so to me, I feel like the idea of putting together a prototype that I can be like, look how gorgeous this is in my head way more important than it probably actually is on paper. And I think that that's something that maybe intimidates designers, or at least non-established designers. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I mean, and it is getting more and more competitive, and some of the prototypes that people are showing us are like almost near finished copies. I mean, they've got pretty close to final art. Sometimes that's not always what we want to see either. I mean, I almost kind of feel bad if I play something and they've spent a ton of money on art, and then we might like the game but not like the art.
Yeah.
Or if the designer, if the art causes the designer to perhaps be too emotionally attached to the theme, where the game is solid but the theme could use to be shifted or sometimes changed altogether. Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Sometimes it's just not the right theme for a specific publisher. You know, if somebody came to me with a fantastic game about flowers today, we probably don't need a flower game. We have one that's doing very well. So
you don't want to be known as the flower game?
I mean, maybe not 2 in 1 year. No, if it was cats, you know, there's no limit. You can do as many cat games as you want. So
Yes, that's probably true.
but you know, so we might really love that game, but find a different theme for it.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. That I mean, not every theme is going to fit every company for sure. For sure.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that I don't know. I love this idea just because I love hearing more about stuff. Patrick.
Yes.
Do you think flowers are still hard in the chat?
It's sort of a chat question about, you know, flowers being hard to sell. So do you still think, I mean, has Lotus been that big of a success or not?
I'll let Sara answer that. She's in charge of sales.
Okay.
So I think that Lotus is going to continue to be a really strong seller, and I think it's going to be a hard game to compete against in the flower category. But I do think that there is lots of room still, and there are other games like Cottage Garden that is about gardening, and I think it'll do just fine. So
just talking about that today.
Yeah. So I don't think that you can't make a game about flowers. You can't make a game about gardening, but I think you have to do something special and different, and just making an absolute beautiful game about flowers is not going to be able to compete against Lotus at this point. So you have to have something that gets there.
Yeah. You have cornered the market on beautiful flower games.
Yes, I think so.
That is probably the correct answer from the company that makes the most beautiful flower game currently on the market.
Of course, yeah.
For sure. So we had Randy Hoyt from Foxtrot on, I want to say 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. And you guys have worked with Foxtrot on a couple of your titles. And I wanted to kind of dive into that as well as co-publishing. How does that, like, how does the choice process sort of factor in when you're looking at co-publishing with somebody?
So it started off with Lanterns, of course, and you know the story behind Lanterns was that Randy Kickstarter. I saw it on Kickstarter. I really, really liked it. I remember watching the video of the gameplay, and because it was one of those things where I would have published it if it was pitched to us, and but it wasn't, because Randy and Randy found Chris, and that was a good thing for everybody in the long run, because then I met Randy at BGG and asked him, hey, what's your plan after Kickstarter? And he said, well, I'm not sure. And we made a deal, and it's worked out really great for everybody. So in that case, the relationship is Randy's an awesome developer. He's done a fantastic job taking a game and developing it and producing a fantastic final product. And he really does kind of get the whole thing. So he and I working together we're on the same page. We understand that you can have a great game, but if it doesn't present well and look beautiful on the table and all those buttons, yet. So we did Lantern, and then World's Fair, and that one's done well for us. And we've got something else in the works for next year. So,
ooh.
I've heard some rumors about some Lanterns expansions. Would you be involved with that?
Oh yeah, the expansion comes out in December. It's in about 7 days from the manufacturer, from the factory.
Okay.
It is on.
Excited about that.
Yeah, that one's really cool. That went through a lot of development as well. So I played it for the first time back in March. Sara and I both got to play it. And it evolved quite a bit. So
yeah, I haven't even played the final version of it yet. You'll have to bring it to Essen and we can play it.
Yep.
Well, that seems like a good place to play a game.
Yay.
Yeah. Oh no, actually for us it turns into a horrible place. It's like
You'll have to bring it to Essen and hand it to me so I can play it at home when I actually get a chance to play
That's
games.
a roundabout way to getting it from San Diego to Bozeman.
The most traveled copy of Lanterns, the Emperor's Gifts. Ever.
Yeah.
That's
China,
awesome.
Yeah, from China to San Diego to Essen.
Yeah.
Hey, whatever works.
Remind me to not encourage you to do a logistics game. It will not end well.
Actually, there should be a game like that because every Kickstarter, guy says, "Well, I could do this better," right? And you could show them how hard it really is, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Look at thousands of miles we had to put under this copy of this game just to make this happen.
Yes.
There's Containers, the board game. Should play
God.
that one.
That is all about having to jump through hoops. Like that might as well just be the game of hoop jumping. That's what it. Yeah. There's someone in the chat that wants to hear more about The Blood of an Englishman.
Yeah. The Blood of this. Okay, so talk about love at first sight. This was a love at first sight game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so Sarah and I both got to play this at Unpub, and Dan was there play testing and sat down and played. And actually, a store owner, a friend of ours, played it first. So
he did, didn't he?
Yeah, we have to give Paul credit. So Paul played it, and that's not real.
Not real.
So yeah, a guy that owns a store out in Maryland played it. He was at Unpub. He said, "You got to check out this game." We went over and played it, and I immediately started pestering Dan. "Have you found a publisher who's going to make this game?" And Dan was like, "I'm just here to play test. Leave me alone."
Well, and Arboretum's one of my favorite games. I would play that game literally every single day. So I've not been a fanboy with designers before ever until I met Dan. I was like, oh my God, I love your game so much. It's ridiculous.
Nice.
Yeah, we went back and we played it a time or two. And I think then the next day I went back and talked to him and annoyed him some more. I was like, usually I don't like put on the hard sell, but I really like the game. Usually, okay, that's all good. I want you to find the right home, but I wanted the home to be us. I don't know. I was I like the game a lot. So yeah, it came to be, and Dan had been doing a ton of play testing, and we continued to do play testing mainly for balance. Technically changed. The theme stayed the same. The name stayed the same. He had the original name was The Blood of an Englishman. So people aren't familiar with the game. It's Jack and the Beanstalk themed.
Mm-hmm.
But The Blood of an Englishman, it's a straight up 2-player strategy game. It's not hard to learn to play, but it's there's heavy strategy in there. It's you're gonna think. So we wanted to keep a more mature name. We didn't want it to be confused as a very light kids game. And I don't know if you've seen the art yet, but the art came out pretty great.
I have not, but I got to say, I have yet to see something with your company name on it that wasn't Drop Dead Gorgeous. So if you are saying that the art turned out pretty good, I believe in you, because seriously, everything that I've seen that comes from Renegade is jaw-dropping once it's on the table. So I believe in you.
We were pretty happy with this one. This one is, I would say, is even exceptional by our standards. So, and that is also on the way and releases in November. It's like $15. It's a straight up card game. It's a 2-player game only. It's only for 2 players. So
I have an entire section of my game collection that is specifically 2-player games that I would enjoy with my girlfriend. So I have a feeling this is going to be one that I'm definitely going to want. Will there be copies at BGG?
Yes, there will be.
And there goes my austerity 2016. See, I knew it was going to break at BGG. I knew it was
only a $15 game, so at least
he doesn't count that though.
I know, it's true. I listened to the podcast last week. I know all about it.
See? I also, then you knew that I was planning on failing miserably once I got to BGG.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're going to be failing, at least you should buy cheaper games, maybe.
Make sure, if you're going to screw this up, at least screw it up efficiently, dude. You know, like don't.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I love the idea. I love the theme. You know, I feel kind of stupid because I knew nothing about this before we asked the question from the chat, and I totally didn't get that's what Blood of an Englishman would have been referring to, which I think really makes it kind of smart, right? Like once you look at it, you're going to get, okay, oh, beep, pipe, pum, I get it now. But at first it gives it that more serious tone. I think that is really smart because otherwise it could be mistaken for a kid's game or a family only game. And it definitely doesn't sound like that at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dan, you know, the way he put it when we were talking about it was, think if you were talking in Disney movie terms, we wanted Maleficent, not Sleeping Beauty. Right. So kind of that.
Gotcha. Yep.
But still family friendly, accessible. It's not by no means, is it, you know,
right,
a rated R subject matter.
Well, that's probably good. I would be terrified of a rated R version of a Jack and the Beanstalk anything. I just feel like that ends badly for everybody. And Patrick immediately went there, which is why I had to make that joke because I know my friend Patrick, and that's how his brain is. Yeah, you didn't have to, sir. All right, well, that's awesome. I love being able to kind of dig inside the process here. Like I said at the top of the segment, I think this is the sort of thing that people don't really have any kind of an understanding about. I think there's this perception that it's either you have to know the right people, you know, like you have to already have an in, and you have to have a perfect prototype, and you have to be able to sell, like you have to be a salesman. And I obviously none of those things are going to hurt the process, but it doesn't sound like any of them are exactly prerequisites either.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that the most important thing is just get out there and make contacts. Like going to things like Unpub and BGG. I'd say that the smaller shows are better. You know, everybody looks at Gen Con, and Gen Con is wonderful. Connections as a new designer with publishers, that's probably one of the worst shows you could go to.
Yeah.
We're just so overscheduled, and I mean, that show could be 10 days and I'd have no problem filling our schedule. So
that sounds like hell.
It is.
10 days of a Gen Con-like schedule would make me want to off myself in a messy fashion. I worked as an exhibitor for a whole bunch of years, and by day 3, I was sick of other human beings. I could not even fathom the idea of 10 days.
Right.
That would not be, no, not okay. All right, we have one. Oh, yeah. I kind of want to go off on a tangent now about the almost 10-day BGG thing. Right, and how
I was thinking that was the same thing, but that's okay.
Yeah,
that was almost a thing that happened.
Almost.
Yeah, their new solution that sounds really good. They're going to move to a bigger venue.
Absolutely.
I think that's good. I want more people to be able to go to that show.
If you listen to our friends over at Low Player Count, who are all from Dallas, it sounds very positive.
Good.
That's good. It's good hearing local folks speak well of the new plan because, you know, it's super convenient, right? Flying in to BGG, you know, you'd literally hop on a shuttle and then you're there and you don't have to worry about anything if you fly in. But conversely, that location is not conducive to going anywhere that isn't the hotel you're already in. Like you're pretty much, you're on an island, and unless you feel like spending a bunch of money on cab fare, you're staying on that island, or maybe you know somebody from Dallas. So yeah. I think that moving sounds solid. We have one more question from the chat that I want to throw to you guys. So that how do you keep game prices reasonable with art that nice? What kind of print size are you doing? I assume they're talking about print run size there.
Yeah. I mean, it all is just part of the formula. You know, we actually do run our company like a business. We run P&Ls, profit and loss statements for all of our stuff, and you know, what the retail price winds up being is definitely a concern. Sarah and I talk about that quite a bit. but it's also that trade-off. If you put nicer components in the box and all custom meeples, Fuse is a good example. Straight up generic dice, but we didn't want to. We wanted custom-made dice that had the digital font that matched the theme of the game. So we made all, and we just made it work. As far as print run size, our average print run our minimum print run is usually about 5,000 games. And
wow.
It can go up. We reprint very quickly.
Okay.
Testing and managing. I mean, we do this a lot. I say this about a lot of our games. We ordered the second printing of Lotus before the first printing in the warehouse. So, and that's happened with a bunch of our games. So.
What was that mostly just a matter of keeping your finger on the pulse of the buzz around the game, or playtest feedback, or I mean, because that seems from the outside, and I obviously don't doubt your skills in being able to run your business. You're still in business, which is more than a lot of small publishers can say nowadays. Truth hurts, but that sounds super risky to a schlub like me, right? Like, you haven't sold your first game yet, really. How are you ordering the second run of that game? That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, we do it all the time.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So either either you're the bravest people in the world, or you have a secret, and you seem like bold folks, but
I mean, like, it's funny. Sarah and I were just talking about this the other day. I mean, my background throughout the game industry, and even before the game industry, even growing up, was forecasting and purchasing has always been part of what I've done. So I think in the most cases, if we were a little bit bigger of a publisher, we would probably be printing more initially out of the gate than we are. For a lot of our games that we have a really strong feeling about, or we have good indicators, but it's part of the mechanism is to manage and make sure that we're never put in a spot where things are going to be too tight. So that's sometimes why we spread out the print runs.
Okay.
But you can also kind of tell, like with Lotus, there's just nothing else like it, and everybody who sees it just really loves it. So as soon as we started showing that cover to people and the reaction that we got, it was pretty obvious that we were going to be able to sell a lot of it. And it's also just part of the process of trying to get pre-orders and talking to distributors and doing all that part of it. You kind of get a feel for if something's going to do well or not. But it's a lot of guesswork.
And I really like Push Your Luck game.
so it's
He's just playing Dicey Goblins with our print runs.
Because we kind of play one every day. So
it's Can't Stop the Publishers Edition, basically,
Right.
with the dash of business acumen in there. I like it.
Yeah.
I love that. This reinforces what I found out 2 weeks ago, that I would never be able to be a publisher, because I am terrified on your behalf just hearing about this. Like, it's not even my money, and it freaks me out a little bit. So it's not a thing. Ooh. But no, I think it's so smart. You said this a couple minutes ago, that you run your game company like a business, and that seems really, well, duh.
Yeah, not always.
It's not. That's exactly the point. I think you're absolutely right. I think that sometimes people are so enthusiastic about the hobby that getting into the business side of things seems like a natural extension, and really it's maybe it's the opposite, or at least that, passion for the hobby isn't the only requirement, I guess is what I'm saying. You have to actually know how to run a business too. And I think maybe that's probably why smaller publishers don't always make it, I would guess. I don't know. I'm never going to be a publisher. That's what I know. That's never going to happen. Not a chance in hell. No way.
I think people are good at different things. Everybody has their own skill sets. And I own a retail hobby store, and I see the same thing at that level as well. There are lots of people who get into it because they have a big board game collection, or they have a big Magic collection, and they think, I really like this thing, I could sell these. But my husband and I, when we started the store, we had read one comic ever. I'd played Magic a little bit. I didn't even know what Settlers of Catan was, but we wanted to start a business, and it seemed like one that didn't cost a lot to get into and that we could do for a little while. And if it failed, it wasn't going to be the end of the world. So we got into it thinking of it as a business, and a lot of stores don't. And it's the same thing with publishers too. But if you like thinking about the numbers, you like looking at the dollars going in and out, that kind of thing, then it can be good. But if you're a game designer and that's what you're really good at, then you should probably just keep designing games. And being a publisher maybe doesn't make sense for you.
Yeah, we can't all be Ryan Lockett and do Red Raven Games where we design the games and draw all the art and do all the publishing.
Ryan's amazing.
He is a prodigy, and he terrifies me because I don't know how big of a brain you have to be able to do all of that nonsense. And you think I'm terrified by what you guys do? No, I don't know. It's awesome. I'm a little bit of a fanboy.
Yeah, I met him at Gen Con, and he's like 12 too.
Yeah. Well, wait, that was the younger version. That was the younger clone.
The younger clone. Okay.
Patrick's
there's a whole like colony of Ryans back there.
That totally explains things.
Yeah.
There's no way one man can do all that. It's
Right.
Incredible.
So this is Multiplicity, the board game version.
I
Excellent.
just thought of that.
Yeah.
That's good. So that one of them has the flight cap on, and he sits in the. Very good.
You should see Ryan look behind his ear to see which version he is.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I am afraid that I will have that fanboy moment that Sarah was talking about earlier if I did meet Ryan, and I would just forget all the things and be like, "Hi, I love you. I mean, I love your games. I mean, hi," and that would be the end of it. It'd be so dumb.
It's easy to do with him. He's so nice.
Oh, see, that makes it worse. At least if he was a jerk, then I could walk away and go, at least I got that out of my system. Terrible. All right, you guys, thank you so much. I'm sorry.
One of the nicest guys in the industry.
Really
Excellent.
is.
Awesome.
Well, now I need to go meet him for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Ryan, if you're watching this show, come find me, please. So, you guys, thank you so much for letting us kind of root around inside your skulls and pull some ideas out. I think that it's awesome when publishers, like I said at the top of the show, I love it when publishers are willing to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and let people kind of get an idea on how the sausage is made, so to speak. I think it's important because I think sometimes we as just consumers on our end take a lot of things for granted. And I think that, and I'm definitely not, I'm not suggesting that, publishers are like saints or whatever, but they're people too. And everybody's got their own priorities that they have to work through. And I love that publishers are willing to talk about it. It's very cool. And you guys are awesome. And you have sounded so smart for the last hour. And unfortunately, I am about to attempt to ruin that for you because as is traditional on the Cubist, there is a rapid fire segment at the end of every episode. And I don't know if anybody watching noticed, but my camera went dark for about a minute and I rolled a die and randomly found out that Sarah will have to undergo rapid fire first. So Sarah, are you prepared for this?
I'm totally ready. Let's do this.
All right. And remember, rapid fire. Fast like a bunny. Here we go. Sarah, your favorite filler game.
Oh, this is really hard. I don't think any filler games. Oceanos. I don't know if everyone would consider that a filler game, but it's like 30 minutes. So that's how we use it.
Close enough. Sarah, a game you will not play at its maximum player count.
Its maximum player count. So this is weird, but I don't like Captain Sonar with 8 people. I like it best with 6.
Weird.
I think it's better.
All right. A game that you wish your company could get the rights to reprint.
Arboretum.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
So hard to get, and I love that game so much.
Excellent. A game that you think would pair well with a nice Chianti.
Oh, what?
Wine.
That's
Red
wine.
wine.
Oh, I don't drink. Okay, what would go well with grape juice? Oh, how about La Granja?
There you go. And rock, paper, or scissors?
Hey. Rock.
Rock. Very good. Nice job, Sarah. See, that wasn't so
Good
bad.
job.
Once you get into the flow, it's that first question that throws
There you
everybody. I feel you.
Mhm.
Scott,
Yeah, that's
Yes.
fair.
the bar has been
Wait, I don't
set
think
reasonably
that was
high.
anymore. Oh, okay.
The bar has been set reasonably high. Are you prepared?
No.
All right, here we go. Scott, your favorite dice game?
My favorite dice game. Oh. Can I name my own game?
Yes.
Sure.
Fuse.
There you go. The perfect number of people to have at a game night. Okay. A game you want to like, but just don't.
Oh, no. Caverna.
There you go. A TV
Alchemist.
a TV show that you think would make a great board game.
Oh. TV show that I think would make a great game.
I want to answer all Scott's questions.
I mentioned that this is called the rapid fire segment, right, Scott? There you go. And rock, paper, or scissors? There you go. You finally won. See, I gave you a softball so you could beat Sarah. Well done, Scott. Very good. They were talking about how Sarah was. Yeah, there was no Milton Bradley question. I avoided that. Suzanne Sheldon will live forever in infamy for that. And there's Sarah and Scott, thank you so much for coming on the Cubist. I hope you guys had half as much fun as we did. It's great talking to you guys and just learning more about the publishing side of things.
It was a blast. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And thank you, all of our viewers, for watching. We will catch up with everybody again next week. Have a great night. Take care.